Hey there, I'm Jackson at Lake Hazel Middle School, and you're watching the West Ada Podcast.
You know, I mean, if I would just get on my soapbox for parents, you know, and give maybe a couple of key things is remember, reading is crucial. You know, I mean, you have the opportunity to expose your kids to language and reading, you know, whether through audiobooks or, you know, print books. 2, eating is fun. You know, I mean, figure out how to make eating healthy and fun for kids. You know, and again, during those summer months, a lot of times fruits and vegetables are more accessible. And then 3, sleep is important.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the West Ada School District Podcast. I can't believe it's time to talk summer.
It is, and it comes fast, right? Like we have spring fever, and we've got to be planning and preparing for summer activities.
Well, and we've got a couple of great guests, and you and I were talking just a minute ago. It really is time to plan. So this episode is for you parents to really start the planning.
That's right. We have Monique Bosse. She's the Student and Family Engagement Liaison for the West Ada School District.
She does a great job.
She's a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
And then we have Andrew Fletcher. He's the executive branch director of the YMCA, and he kind of oversees all kid programming and daycares and all that stuff. So great resources.
He's a fun
for
guy.
Conversation
Yeah,
today.
he loves kids, and he likes to have cool suits as well.
He sure
as
does.
you
You're
will see.
that.
If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see that. So anyway, great summertime podcast. Here we go.
Well, we have a fun conversation today. Andrew Fletcher is executive branch director of the YMCA.
And wearer of awesome suits as well.
I know. Well, and spending your birthday with us. Happy birthday.
Pretty cool.
Thank you both.
And Monique Bosse, you are a wonderful student and family engagement liaison with the district. And my colleague I get to work with all the time, so welcome. It's not your birthday, but we can pretend if you want.
We can pretend. It's my very unmerry birthday.
Yeah, your very unmerry birthday.
It's a good day either way, right?
It is. It's a Monday, yay for us. So, Andrew, why don't you share with us a little bit your background and kind of how you found yourself at the YMCA?
Absolutely. So, like you said, I get to be Andrew Fletcher, and I'm our Executive Director of Child Development. I oversee 29 child care sites in Treasure Valley for the YMCA, ranging from infants all the way up to 12 years old. And so we serve a few thousand kids every year. And kind of how I got here is, you know, I mean, going through my undergrad, I always wanted to work with kids. I just knew that I loved kids. And originally when I was at Idaho State University, I wanted to be a teacher. And I worked for Pocatello School District and learned that there's this whole other field of out-of-school time programming or expanded learning. And I just thought, wow, this is so cool of kind of after hours, you get to interact with kids. You can kind of bring in a little bit more of your passion, do a lot of physical activity, stuff like that. And then I graduated. I actually jumped over to the State Department of Education for a few years and oversaw an after-school grant, suicide prevention, and safe and drug-free schools. And again, a beautiful experience to learn and grow. And did my graduate program at Boise State University in educational leadership. And then I kind of got to that spot of I really wanted to get back to working more directly with kids. I mean, I love the State Department of Education, but just statewide presence wasn't quite as impactful of what I wanted. And so
that's cool.
This lined up, and here I am in the Treasure Valley. And
29 programs. You're not busy at all, right?
No, not at all.
Well, and we're going to get into this in a little bit, but like childcare, that's such a huge thing in the Valley right now, trying to find it. I want to make sure we circle
everywhere,
back
all over the country.
Everywhere, right?
Oh, that's cool.
Absolutely.
Well, Monique and you, if you wouldn't mind, just kind of describe for our listeners what your role is with the district as well.
So my role with the district is I work with federal programs.
Right.
So I work mostly with title schools and just bringing in enrichment and opportunities for our kids, which is kind of my why. And, you know, making sure that these kids have opportunities that all the other children have as well. And so I help out with writing grants and working with our community schools. And
now, because we do this podcast is for all parents and folks in our community, people may not be familiar with Title I. We give like just kind of a 30,000 foot overview of what Title I is. And
so there are lower income schools, and that is normally by the free and reduced rate is kind of what.
For lunches,
for
right?
lunches,
okay.
Right.
And so they just get some extra money to help out with different academics and enrichment activities and things like that.
Okay.
Oh, that's
awesome.
cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, and again, 30,000 foot view. I mean, big picture, you guys. We all know as parents, as educators, keeping our kids engaged is important. We know that on a high level, but Can you expound on that a little bit? Why? I mean, Andrew, if you want to start, why is keeping our kids engaged, especially over the summertime? That's the focus of today. Why is that such an important thing?
Absolutely. So, I mean, we want to keep our kids engaged thinking about a whole child development. You know, I mean, their cognitive, social, emotional, physical, and then linguistic development. And so how do we keep them engaged in all these aspects? And, you know, we know as we talk about summer specifically, kids tend to lose some of that structure that they get during the school year, you know, some of those physical activities, things like that. And so how do we, you know, as a community come together to provide additional opportunities for kids to still interact with their friends, get outdoors, be physically active, and, you know, I mean, develop some of that academic learning and emotional learning too, you know, like, ooh, how do I continue to self-regulate and everything like that through the summer?
Which is the thing,
Right, and it's so great summer for a lot of families. If you can be a single income household, or maybe have a parent at home with kids, or maybe have a nanny that can help them do all of these things, but that's a pretty small group of people, right? Like keeping them enriched and engaged. I think about for myself, where in a few weeks here, my husband and I are going to still head off to work in the morning, and we're going to have kids at home maybe doing nothing. Right. So that's where the Y steps in.
Absolutely. So, you know, programs like the Y, you know, come in where we offer sports camps, we offer day camps, we also offer our child care, and, you know, out in Horse Thief Reservoir, we offer our resident camp. So kids could go for a week-long cabin or tent experience, you know, all of that. And so programs like the YMCA, you know, I mean, Boys and Girls Club, 4-H, libraries, all over here in Treasure Valley, we have different programs for kids to kind of pursue their interests, and, you know, parents figure out like, ooh, this is what works for me. I just need something for a few hours. I need something all day long. All of those fun things. Well,
and Monique, I mean, Andrew mentioned it. I mean, obviously, and we also know that there's a fall off academically every summer. I mean, I don't even know if you know the data, but what do you see from an education standpoint in terms of trying to keep our kids on point?
I think just with having, I think it's a time for them to be creative of what they want to learn about. To me, I think it's, what are your interests? What do you want to talk? What do you want to learn about? I think that's a great opportunity for kids, especially, you know, I feel like it's a lot of academics all year round. So it's just kind of that, what are you interested in? And then I feel like those experiences that they have link with back to when they go back to school. It's like, you know what, I went to the Y and I went camping, and I can tell you what it's like to be in a forest, or, you know, go on a hike and things like that. So I think it's really important for them to have those experiences to help make those connections during when they go back to school.
Right. Yeah. And more of that experiential learning, right? Like the hands-on, and that's a really good point. I never really thought about it that way with my kids. So,
well, and I think too, it's almost important. I mean, to your point, it's also important to relax.
Yes.
As a type A dad, I'm like, well, we've got to do this, this, and this. It's like, well, no, not necessarily. I mean, I guess the question is, how important is it then to relax?
Oh, I think it's huge to relax. I think, you know, kids do need that downtime. They do need to unwind. And I mean, I have a 10-year-old who he has to have a book and his little nightlight at night because his brain doesn't shut off. So it's like he has to read for a little bit and shut down. I mean, we all do as adults,
that's
right?
Me.
Like
that's totally me.
And
absolutely.
You know, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. He needs to shut down. He needs to, you know, kind of relax and be. And he doesn't like the everyday when we have sports, like right now, it's crazy. Yeah. They want to be in sports, right? But then when it's like, oh no, there's practice this day, there's Boy Scouts that day, there's this, and they're just like, oh, what's going on today? You know, but they do. It's like, I think sometimes we overload our kids with too many activities, and so they just need that downtime.
Yeah,
that's important. That's an important note too. Like, just let summer slow down a little bit. Mm-hmm. And even, I mean, I assume when in summer programming at the Y, you build in some rest time. It's not like they're go the entire day that they're there, right?
Absolutely. So, you know, at the Y, we have kind of two different formats of what we do. Is we have our structured activities, you know, so sometimes we do go, where it's very specific of like, oh yeah, we are cooking, or, you know, doing this STEM activity, whatever it may be. And then we also have unstructured activities where this is a little bit more of our playtime, you know, I mean, so kids can kind of just navigate where they want to go with their own creativity. You know, some of that rest, meditation, you know, falls into that unstructured time. But you're right, there needs to be kind of that balance between, we do have these high intense learning opportunities, but then at the same time we give kids these opportunities to just be like, hey, I'm a kid and that's okay too. I'm just going to play on the playground for like 30 minutes and do whatever my heart feels like. I'm going to act like a cat and jump around.
Act like a cat. That's appropriate.
Oh, that's funny. Well, and I think kind of shifting gears a little bit too. I mean, we all know that this generation of kids with COVID and everything else, that has impacted their learning, their
socialization.
Socialization. Yeah. What are you all seeing in the programs that you use? Are things getting back to normal? Are we still dealing with some of that stuff? What are you seeing, Andrew?
Absolutely. So I think things are slowly getting back to normal. I mean,
yeah.
It depends on what we define as normal, but
Right.
you know, what we're seeing is more and more kids are slowly creeping into more interaction, stuff like that. But we still want to keep that focus on what we call social emotional learning. You know, I mean, thinking about kids being able to manage their own emotions, and then figure out like, ooh, this is what I'm feeling. How do I regulate this? And what is the appropriate response to regulate? And then social interactions as well, is thinking, you know, a lot of times what we're seeing is peer-to-peer conflict. That's probably the biggest struggle that we work through, is like, okay, how do we treat other people like humans? You know, and so whether it's on the soccer field and they have a conflict, like what does that look like to resolve that? Or same thing when they're playing with Legos or STEM or whatever it may be. And so still kind of getting in there, coaching them, but then letting them just be friends and interact with each other.
Yeah.
Those are really valuable skills. I'll be sending my 3 boys over. You can teach them how to deal with conflict a little bit better.
Well, I mean, and maybe this is for you as well, Monique, but you talk about conflict resolution and face-to-face. I mean, our kids need adults to step out of it too.
Right.
I mean, Monique, what are you seeing there? I mean, how important is it for our kids to get together face to face, and we're playing soccer or we're having an issue or whatever, and let them resolve it for themselves? Is that a thing?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a thing. They really need to learn how to, we always say, use your words, communicate. You know,
I have a problem with that, but okay,
yeah. Or just, you know, how are you feeling right now? And I think that's, you know, and we model that as parents, of just, you know, checking in every day. We do this thing of highs and lows in my house. What was your high today? You know, what was your low today? And I think, you know, just hearing my kids talk about what made them upset today or what really excited them today will also help them, you know, navigate their feelings in school as well. And they can kind of recognize what makes them happy and what doesn't, you know. Right. So, so I think it's really important that they learn how to communicate with each other, because mom and dad aren't going to always be there, or
that's
a teacher, or, you know, anybody that's there.
I love that you call them highs and lows. I mean, that's appropriate. We call them happy and crappy in our house. So you're happy and you're crappy.
Actually, we call them lows and glows. I messed that up, but it's lows and glows is what we call it. So what was your glow?
When do you do it at night, at dinner time? When do you do that?
So we actually do it twice. So we do it once as soon as I pick them up from school. And they're doing it now. They're just like, okay, lows and glows. As soon as we get in the car, they're like, what, you know? And so they tell me that. And then we do it again at dinner because dad wasn't there. So then dad normally is like, hey, I missed lows and glows today. What was that? And so, and it helps us, you know, what's going on in their lives right now, or, you know, they have a PowerPoint, and we learn about assignments that they have coming up sometimes too, or just, you know, different things. And I think it's a better way of just saying, like, how was your day today?
Right.
You know,
good.
It starts that conversation.
Make them actually talk.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
oh, that's
and
cool.
we've had experts on here before, and we've mentioned this to people who've listened to the podcast regularly, but getting your kids to talk. This is a great way to get your kids to talk to you young and just listen. Sometimes they drone on and you have to listen to stuff you're not super interested in. You know, like, yeah, great.
I love Grover. He's awesome.
Yeah, right. But then I've noticed now that my kids are teenagers that they still are in the habit of that. So they tell us things, and sometimes I'm like, you know, I'm your mom, right? Like, why are you telling me this? But also, I'm like, thank God you're telling me this, so I can help you through these like harder times.
Yeah,
and
navigate
like that.
it.
So it's a really good practice to start that young with kids.
Yeah, well, and you all are both parents. I mean, does it all the stuff we're talking about? Does it change? Andrew, does it change in the summertime with you? You've got a 6-year-old, you said.
I have a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old.
Does summertime? I guess the question is, how does summertime conversation change in your households, or does it change?
Right. I would say overall, I mean, the process doesn't change. You know, I mean, a lot of our structure remains the same. You know, I mean, we still have the same bedtimes. You know, same family dinner time. You know, some of those key structures that we believe in. Obviously, the big gap is they have a lot more free time during the day. You know, it's like, oh yeah, you're somewhere. You know, I mean, doing something that's not in school, and so what we try to do though is we do supplement that, like figuring out like, ooh, look, museum's doing a camp, let's sign up for this, and kind of keep that structure the same.
Right.
And then I think it helps too, though, as long as we keep those same routines throughout the summer, the conversations just kind of continue to flow, so it's like, oh yeah, we have our family dinner and here's our regular family conversations. And then we have our bedtime routine. And, and of course, even as the sun stays out, we're still like, well, yep, it looks like it's lunch. It looks like it's lunchtime outside, but we're still going to bed. Like,
Right. That's what I was going to ask. Like, do you black out shades or?
Yeah, we do. We do have blackout curtains. And my 10-year-old asked me last night. He said, as it gets brighter, is there a way to make it darker in here? And I was like, I don't think it can get any darker in your room. Like, you're just gonna have to figure that one out.
Right.
Close your eyes. Yeah. Well, and this is kind of shifting gears again, Monique. One of the things as I was researching, having this conversation with you all, I saw an article from the Brookings Institute, and basically the article was kind of saying that income doesn't affect necessarily kids' learning loss in summertime. I'm as a person, I'm like, how the heck does that work? I can't intellectually get my head around that. What do you see? I mean, I would think that income does matter, doesn't it?
I think it matters to as far as, maybe not matters, but I think it just as far as.
Or has an effect, maybe.
It has an effect, but I think this really depends on how you use your resources around you, and those in the position I am in is sharing those resources of how are they going to be able to, end up in STEM camps, or how do I get them at a Lego camp or the Y. And, one of the great things that my job is that, we work with all these community partners and we network so much. And then it's like, oh yes, we have a family that needs that. And actually with the Y camp, I just was talking to a family advocate today, and they were telling me about how 2 of their kiddos got to go to one of the Y camps, and they called them last week and said, we want those 2 kiddos again this year. So they get that opportunity again. So it's just great. I don't think it matters your income, but I think it's just knowing the resources in your community and around you.
Please take time to vote May 21st. The West Ada School District Supplemental Levy will be featured on the ballot and directly impacts the quality of education and safety in our district. The replacement levy funds will sustain the salaries and benefits of 152 current teachers and the services of 19 current school resource officers. It's important to emphasize this levy is not a new tax. It simply replaces an existing levy. In fact, if you're a homeowner, this replacement levy will actually cost less. If approved, the tax will decrease by 30 cents per $100,000 of taxable assessed value. We've included a link in the show notes so that you can dig into the facts further for yourself. Please take a closer look. We encourage all community members to mark your calendars for May 21st and consider voting to make your voice heard. Every vote counts.
And along those lines of income kind of versus access, I love that you mentioned that we have so many community partners here at the district, and usually each spring you'll go through and kind of reach out to our partners and put together like a summer, what do you call it, like the summer
activity guide.
Summer activity guide.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll make sure we get some information about that. I'm sure it'll be coming somewhat soon. You have to get on.
Yes,
on
I'm working on it. I have it this year, so I'm just need to make sure that everything is
updated.
still the same cost and websites are linked and all that fun stuff. But yes, it's a great way to get some activities in.
Yeah, get the information out there. Andrew, and from the Y perspective, the income gaps that you see across the Treasure Valley, really, how do you address those?
Absolutely. So to Monique's point, a lot of it is probably less, just like you said, about income and more about access and resources. And so at the Y, we believe that nobody's turned away due to the inability to pay. So we have financial assistance that we go out and we fundraise to ensure that we have a spot for every child that needs a sports camp or swim lessons or childcare or day camp, whatever it may be. We also seek additional grants and things like that to help all of our kids in our community. And when we also talk about kind of that income gap, some things that parents can always do, like we've already discussed, is talk to your kids. The power of parents just communicating regularly with their children and having conversations, and then read with your children. We know that this is huge, that all parents, regardless of income, of course, sometimes it might be not necessarily income based, but just your availability, stuff like that impacts. But we can all read to our kids. You know, I mean, libraries are great resources to get books, and you know, there's a lot of free activities in the parks. You know, lunch in the park that do physical activities and stuff like that. So I know that there's stuff out there. It just takes a little bit of work, and luckily we have people like Monique who can kind of help say, "Hey, I packaged everything for you. Here you go.
Check it out."
Well, and what's really cool when you read to your kids, I mean, because so you guys, you got 6 and 10. Mine are a junior in high school and a freshman in college. What's cool is I read to them a lot when they were young. Now, when they're writing essays and stuff, they'll say they'll read what they wrote to me. I'm like, oh, this is a cool kind of coming full circle. It's like, oh, this is cool. So anyway, just as an older guy, it's like, hey, there's some cool benefit to this moving down the line. You know?
And something that I've noticed too in my parenting, you know, I have this in my mind, like you read at bedtime. I'm exhausted by bedtime. Like I'm not the funnest mom by bedtime. By the time you get through dinner, dishes, bath, you know, all the things. So finding other times to read, you know, maybe when you're sitting in the car at one of the other siblings' practices or something, or waiting for them after school, or just before dinner, right after dinner, things like just trying to be creative of when you can get that reading time in, because that's some guilt I've felt over the years. Like, I'm too tired to do bedtime story, you know, like tag you're it.
So I'm a huge fan of books on tape, and the libraries have an app called Libby. And so you can hear them. So instead of like the music, trying to edit whatever your kids are listening to on the radio now, we listen to books in the car. So it's so great, like just to be able to have that, to hear the story time. It reminds me of like back in the olden days where they listened to the radio and listened to stories. So I get that now. And so the kids are too, but it's like if somebody's not in the car, they want to start the book again.
Oh, you
and
have
it's
to
like,
wait.
but you have to wait till everybody's in the car.
All the ears need to be here, right? Oh, that's
We
hilarious.
do a lot of road trips, and my husband always like loads up the Libby, like he's downloading, like he has them all, and then like we vote in the car, like who wants to listen to this book, or it's fun.
Well, and listen, I mean, you mentioned it a minute ago, Andrew, like a physical activity. Monique, why is physical activity so important too, especially in the summertime, to get kids moving? Why is it important?
I think it's just so great for their brain, and it just, I mean, just like even gardening, like you don't even have to be, you know, sticking your hands in the dirt of just how it makes you feel, and just like the calmness that brings. And, you know, I have a lot of early learning background as well. And, you know, we used to do that with just like flour, of just them feeling just different materials and just feeling, you know,
kind of a tactile kind
yes,
of,
yes. And it's just calming. I don't know, like it's just soothing, and it just really helps you soothe your body, and you're just kind of in your own thoughts and with nature. And so I think that's really important for kids to experience.
Yeah, you don't want them to be zombies all day, right?
Yes.
It's so easy to let the screen be the babysitter, you know?
Well, and you're bringing back crazy memories for me. I didn't even thought about this, but like, so my father-in-law loved gardening, and he would build garden boxes and get my kids out there when they were young. And anyway, it's just kind of as a weird aside. I'm like, but you know what? They learned a lot in the summertime about building garden boxes, and then the tactile stuff. It's just that's cool. I love your point. That's cool.
That it doesn't have to just be go run around the block.
Yes.
Go do jumping jacks and push-ups.
Go walk the dog.
Absolutely. And it is a great activity that families could do together, you know, that it is like, going for a walk, you know, and we look at it, you know, in the Y, we do kind of moderate activities. So those looser things like, you know, playing on the playground, going on a walk, and then vigorous physical activity, which is more that running and, you know, playing soccer, playing, you know, flag football, all of those things. And so figuring out families can look at, everybody saddle up, we're going for a walk together, or, you know, like we're going to do some physical activity to be outside gardening, whatever it may be.
Now we talk about the programs and the different opportunities, but being kind of like mid-April time, we feel it like, oh gosh, summer's almost here. Is there still time for families to register, or are all the summer activities full? You know, it's almost, there's a rush as a parent. You're like, oh my gosh, am I too late? Did I miss the deadline? Are we registered? What, you know.
Absolutely. So one resource through the Idaho Out of School Network, so they actually have a program inventory. And so you can get on and look at idahooutofschoolnetwork.com or .org.
You know what? I'll add the link in our show notes. Either way, I'll make sure, just for you listening, I'll make sure I add the link. I'll get the right link
so people
for you.
can find a wide variety, you know, so the YMCA is on there, Boys and Girls Club, you know, all variety of programs. At the Y, you know, our summer registration opens in February, because you're right, a lot of parents are on this, that they know that they're like, ooh, hey, I need something for my kid to do. So we open in February. You know, we do have spots throughout the valley, you know, I mean, and here in Meridian, you know, we do have some of our kind of campus sites that have modulars on school campuses, as well as our gym facilities. And then, we also have day camps. And so if somebody's like, hey, I just want somewhere for my kid to go just for a sliver of time, do a day camp or a sports camp. And then swim lessons. I mean, they do fill up, but there are openings still. I know that South Meridian area is bursting, and so they fill up the quickest. But
right, yeah.
Such good memories of swim lessons at the Y. Like, to me, that's just the quintessential childhood passage. Like sitting in the pool at the Y.
I remember those days very well. Yeah. Well, I mean, and from the school's perspective, Monique, I mean, I know that we do a lot of lunches and stuff in the summertime as well. What other opportunities are out there for our families from the West Ada perspective?
So one of them that we just got a grant for. So out of our 10 title schools, we're hoping to send 750 kids to a STEM camp at their school. And it's going to be June 3rd through the 7th. So this is a lot of hands-on STEM activities, robotics that these kids would typically, if they went, it'd probably cost about $150 for them to send their parents, but we're going to send them for free.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
It was a really great grant that we got. And so I'm really excited to see these kids' face, and it's a lot of materials that they get to take home. So it's not even just the week, they learn about it and how to use it, and then they can continue it during the summertime with these different activities that they're going to have.
That's awesome.
Huge.
Now, is that
huge.
is that a full day thing, or?
Yes, it's going to be from 9 to 3.
9 to 3, and then they'll know, your families will be
they're
well
gonna-
informed. There's
Yeah,
flyers,
we're starting
I'm
to
sure.
sign. We just start last week. I think they had the first teacher meeting, so we're going to start flyers and sending that all out and getting all that information out.
And
to
those will
parents.
be at title schools throughout the district.
Correct.
Okay.
That's
cool.
so great. Yeah, and again, not to belabor the point, but I'll make sure there are show links in our show notes, links to all these opportunities as well. What other organizations have you all seen in the Treasure Valley that have done a really good job of providing opportunities for our kids and families?
The libraries, 100%. The
Yeah.
libraries. I mean, it's not just books. You can go learn how to square dance. So if you follow them on social media, you can learn how to square dance. They have Lego clubs. If you want to learn how to make pasta, they have pasta machines. You can go
Check out.
you can check out pickleball. You can. It's great. Big shout out to our libraries here. They just do an awesome job. And I did go to the Ida School Out of Network conference, and there were so many librarians there learning of all the different activities and resources and STEM activities that they can bring to our libraries, and it's all free. So no matter what. And my best thing about COVID with the libraries is if you call them and you tell them, I have age 7 kids and they're learning about this, they will pick the books for you and you just pick them up. I mean, how many times you go to the library and you're just like, what are my kids going to
100%.
What is the subject?
Oh, yeah.
And that was the one thing I learned through COVID was I just called them, okay, I have 5-year-olds and we're learning about social emotional or whatever it is, and 20 books. And it was just like, oh, this is amazing. I get to pick them
Why
up.
didn't I know about that?
Yes, I mean, they're
That's
experts,
cool.
right? Like,
Right.
why wouldn't
That's
you ask the
cool.
experts?
Yeah,
what
rely
books?
on the librarians.
Amazing. I love our libraries.
That is
cool.
really cool. When we were kind of talking before, sorry, this is about face, but we were talking about gardening, and something else that lends to that is families like gardening and growing together. You might be able to get your kids to eat better when they're growing a garden, right? Like if they're like, oh, those are the bell peppers that I grew, or that's the salsa garden
zucchini or-
that I
yeah.
and it gets them a little more excited and
That's cool.
and involved in healthy eating, which we know. I mean, there's plenty of research out there about healthy eating and brain development and performance in school and that kind of thing. Do you guys do any of that education at our Title I schools or at the YMCA?
Yeah, so I think I know McMillan right now is having an after-school program where they're bringing in, and I'm sorry, I don't know the organization, but they're learning how to cook with their family. And so they're doing that, I believe, on Tuesday nights. So, so there's a lot of that different, again, community engagement that,
Right.
we found a community partner and they're bringing some of those things into our schools.
That's cool. Well, and Andrew, obviously the Y does a ton, but are there any other organizations or programs that you're aware of that are doing a good job in the Treasure Valley?
Absolutely. So, real quick at the Y, so we follow what's called HEPA standards, so healthy eating and physical activity. And then we, kind of go through, not only do we follow this with our programs, but educate our parents as well of just, the abundance of sugar that's out there, even in things that you don't think would have sugar.
Parents don't necessarily think about ketchup, right? Like ketchup is so much sugar, like it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like yogurts, muffins, you know what I mean? That's like, things that we naturally see as healthy. So educating parents on like, hey, how do we limit that sugar control more than just candy?
This
You know,
yogurt may not be quite as healthy as you think
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, okay, I'm with you. I'm
you
with
know,
you.
and then
Sure.
like the trans fats and things like that. And so, you know, getting in there, because this is something that parents could take an active role in and help their child, like, ooh, I'm going to expose you to new foods or eat a little healthier,
Right.
you know, and like Katie said, of gardening, you know, like, ooh, now we have our own homegrown stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But, you know, Idaho Food Smart, they do a lot of education classes as well. You know, I know in the Valley Life's Kitchen does stuff too. 4-H, obviously, you know, they do a lot of teaching kids in that nutrition world of like, ooh, how do I improve my own health or be aware of all the
Right.
things out there.
And there's Boise Urban Garden School too, and that's over in West Boise, you know, off of Cloverdale. Is it 5 Mile? 5 Mile. And they have they have great programming and really cool gardens and stuff
Oh,
that
that's
kids
cool.
and families can walk through and explore.
Yeah, they had a nice kitchen and
Yeah.
that you can just go in and take classes and cooking classes. And
Right.
I think even adult classes they had in there.
Yeah.
too.
So,
Sorry, go
I
ahead,
say
Katie.
it all the time, but we live in such a resource-rich
Oh.
valley. There are so many family-focused, kid-focused organizations that can really, like, it just takes a little bit of research or a little bit of know-how to get those resources in front of you, but they're there.
100%. Well, and I'm going to be honest. Okay, so back in the day, there's no way I would have done a cooking class when I was a kid. And I'm just being honest. There's no way. But to your earlier point, Monique, doing something new, something different. And I'm very bad about getting stuck in ruts. I don't want to, but why? I guess my question is, I'm rambling, but why is new important? Why is introducing our kids to something new, why is that so important?
It's exercising their brain of just, you know, new opportunities, new experiences. I mean, you know, like a lot of times when we come back from the kids in the fall, they're so tired because their brains aren't working that much. But doing those new experiences and ideas and learning how to navigate them is just so huge to their development of just helping them out and, you know, really understanding how to do those things and how they work.
Well, and it's part of, I would think, creating lifelong learners, right? Isn't that the goal, to really be a lifelong learner? Our brains have huge capacity, more than we ever probably use. So getting kids young to be able to, you know, try things new and jump in, not be afraid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, you know, Angela Duckworth, who is the leading expert in grit,
Very
she
good.
really, you know, her research shows and advocates that exposing kids to a wide variety of things when they're younger helps them in the long run. You know, like one of the things that we're kind of running into is we're specializing kids way too early. You know, and so it's like, oh yeah, you're 6 years old, but you got 7 soccer leagues that you're on. Here we go. Soccer
Right.
is your dream. You know, and,
Right.
and really she goes in that it's like, oh, we need to broaden the horizons and expose them to everything to see like what sticks with them, that they're like, oh yeah, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what really excites me.
And you can be passionate about multiple things, right? Like you don't
Absolutely.
have to have such a narrow scope. I like that. I'm going to have to read some of her research.
Yeah. Sorry, her name again?
Angela Duckworth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're preaching. I mean, people who've listened to the podcast have heard me go on and on about, I hate the specialization thing. I mean, whether it's a sport or I love being broad. So anyway, you're preaching to the choir on my end. Yeah, big time. Yeah.
Keep them well-rounded.
Follow West Ada School District across your preferred social media channels: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Nextdoor, and YouTube. You can find us there today.
Andrew, you not only do you represent the YMCA, but you're very involved in all community resources and activities going on. Do you want to maybe give us some ideas of the types of organizations we have in the Treasure Valley that are open to kid camps and enrichment activities and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, one of the things I mentioned previously is the Idaho Out of School Network.
Right.
And it is a statewide, network to advocate for youth activities for all children. You know, that everybody needs the access. And so they work with all variety of partners, organizations, things like that. But here in the Treasure Valley, you know, we had mentioned earlier that libraries do a lot during the summer.
Right.
A few other organizations that are really crushing it for us in the summer is we have Boys and Girls Club, you know, that they operate throughout the summer. The city of Meridian, you know, their Merida Moo camps, and the city of Boise, they do their play camps. And so both of those cities come together to help carry this lift for summer learning and summer activities.
Right.
And then Boise State University, a lot of their departments, you know, they bring in their college kids and they break out departments which, their camps, since they're using some of their college students, are a little more affordable and things
Right.
like that to tap into. And then the Micron Foundation, they also do what's called Chip Camp, and so they primarily focus again on those Title I schools, but getting kids into that STEM exposure. And they're actually, kind of focused on that middle school population, those teenagers, because again, that's another probably huge gap for parents of,
Right.
what do I do with all my teens? So many kids are, so many programs are focused with the younger kids.
Right.
What about my teens here?
That's good. I like that you bring up the teenagers because we have 2 teenagers and then a 10-year-old, right? And I'm thinking about things for them to do during the summer. Our oldest drives. The school district is really ramping up to serve a lot more community members for the school nutrition services, the summertime feeding programs. So most parks and schools around the Treasure Valley, or at least within West Ada, and I'm sure Boise does it as well, and the other school districts will have free lunches for all youth, regardless of if you're in this district or not, up to 18 years old, and they can go get a good lunch and have a picnic. And that's something, if anything, that's an activity to do to get them off a screen and out of the house for a little while.
Yeah, which is massively important. Monique, on your end, some boots on the ground stuff. We really want to give our parents an opportunity for options. So, other options that you're aware of that you can pass along?
Yeah, in City of Meridian, they do their movie nights, so that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's free to the
Settlers
community.
Park, those are fun,
those
yeah.
are fun. The Idaho Children's Museum is a huge one, and for some of our lower income families, if they have an EBT card, it's last year it was $3. I need to double check, but it was it's a lower discount. Our museums they're also $3 as well. I mean, there's just so many free. The Capitol. I mean, our Capitol's right here. It's free to go.
And it's beautiful. It's so cool to go
It is.
see and go look in the chambers where laws are made and
Yes.
get the kids exposed.
And
Yeah.
the river. The
Yeah.
river is just such a beautiful place to go collect rocks, count sticks, write letters and numbers in the sand. I know, again, with early learning.
Right.
But there's just so many resources here that we have that, it doesn't cost a whole lot of money to do. And, it's just really simple things. But our activity guide will have that. And I like to put the cost in there so that parents know, I think even the Shakespeare,
The festival out there.
there's
yeah,
a certain
love
day
the
where
Shakespeare Festival. Yeah.
there's a discounted family night too. Like, you can get them at a lower cost. And if you
That's
make it up to
cool.
Garden Valley, their theater up there, if you usher, you can go for free. So there's a
Oh,
little
I was
lot
totally unaware of that. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
What
maybe
is it? The Starlight Theater? What is it called up there in Garden Valley?
Starlight.
Yeah,
Theater.
Starlight Mountain Theater.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can, if you have older kids that can watch themselves, you can watch them there in this.
Yeah.
There's a way to cut cost and not make it so expensive because and the bowling is another thing. Kids can. I think it's like they can go once a day and do 10 frames and so it's really they sign up for these things and it's a really great opportunity that families can save money because we went bowling the other day and I think it was like $100 for a family. It just gets so expensive. It used to be the cheap thing to do and it's just
Not so much anymore.
No, not so much.
Yeah, we took the kids to the movies during spring break, and there's 5 in our family. Like, I thought I was measuring well. Like, okay, we'll share a popcorn. Everyone can have one drink. It was $130 for a movie and snacks to take our family of 5 out, right? So these kind of resources are super helpful, and those will all be in the guide that you're working on and we'll have published soon. And Andrew, I love that you mentioned not leaving out the teenagers, getting them involved. I know the Boys and Girls Club has kind of a teen program, teen hangout spaces, that kind of thing, just so that they're not unattended and using their imaginations to get into some trouble during the summer.
Yeah. Why is that age group so important to keep them occupied?
Absolutely. Again, they're growing as well. In that teenage time frame, actually research shows that that's the second biggest brain growth that happens. Outside of that infancy, the next time is right there in that early teenage years. And we know they're kind of in that weird spot where a lot of times they're just left out, that they don't have a place where it's like, oh, I'm not quite an adult and I'm too old to be over here with these little kids. And, and then again, it's a lot of times parents see like, well, you can take care of yourself. So I'm not paying for, activities anymore.
Right.
The nice thing about teenagers though, is you always get them a job, and so during the summer, there's a lot of places, Roaring Springs is hiring. The YMCA, we bring on coaches, camp counselors, lifeguards, swim instructors, all sorts of things, Boys and Girls Club, they also hire teenagers. And so there's an opportunity for them to work. The Idaho Out of School Network, they're actually starting what's called a STEM ambassador program. And so it's kind of a volunteer role where they're looking to connect with other organizations and get those young adult STEM education experiences where they get a little bit of a stipend and they can volunteer, and great little resume builder for them to say, oh yeah, I volunteered through the summer and I taught STEM classes, and then I got a little bit kickback, so then that way I could go to the movies and things like that.
That's cool.
Well, Sorry, Ken.
No, go ahead,
I
go
love
ahead.
that you said you brought in the volunteer angle, because I'm thinking, okay, I have a teenager is not quite old enough to work or drive, but volunteer opportunities like Just Serve, they're always looking for teenagers to help volunteer. So if they're not having a job or you don't have them in a camp, look for some volunteer opportunities. And even it doesn't have to be formalized. They can go around and help some elderly neighbors out. Maybe go pull
100%.
weeds and learn some of that grit.
Well, so my son was a lifeguard at Roaring Springs one of the years of high school, and when they were doing training in like this time of year, and it was like 50 degrees outside, I'm like, oh my gosh. Anyway, but he was also a camp counselor at the Y. Can you talk a little bit about what does a camp counselor at the Y do as a teenager? Because I think that's a good thing too for teenagers. What does that look like?
Absolutely. So what does a camp counselor do? I mean, the main thing is they get the opportunity to be a role model and impact kids. That's really a lot of the fun stuff. It's like, ooh, they can be quirky and be themselves around kids, and the kids just eat that up.
Right.
But again, a lot of times they'll help with, some of the lesson planning and execution. So it's like, what do you want to do? You like to cook? Well, teach these 7 or 8 kids how to cook, things like that. Or you like to play football? Well, get out there and throw the football with them. So a lot of times those camp counselors get to follow their own passion, like, ooh, I'm into X, Y, and Z, robotics, tennis, all of that.
Right.
And then again, they get the opportunity to be in charge of kids. It's like, oh yeah, you get to see what it's like to make sure all these kids in your group are safe and protected and healthy and happy.
Yeah,
That's cool.
Teaching them some maturity. I think that sounds awesome. Responsibility.
Great opportunity to become a parent.
You know that I'm just waiting to wrap this so I can go get on my computer and sign my kids up for everything.
Well, I can't thank you guys enough. And again, and not to belabor the point, but we in the show notes, I'll try and link everything we've talked about just so it gives our listeners an opportunity to get that. But is there anything, before we let you go, anything we haven't talked about that we should be talking about? We're great at our jobs. We're so great at our jobs.
If I would just get on my soapbox for parents, and give maybe a couple of key things is, remember, reading is crucial. You have the opportunity to expose your kids to language and reading, whether through audiobooks or, print books. 2, eating is fun. Figure out how to make eating healthy and fun for kids, and again, during those summer months, a lot of times fruits and vegetables are more accessible. And then 3, sleep is important. Even though the sun's still out, just make sure, that kid is getting, 9-10 hours of sleep a night to be refreshed. And then the 4th one is like we said in the very beginning of this, play and relax. It doesn't always have to be so serious. So just enjoy the time you have with your kids.
Yeah. I love your soapbox.
Yeah.
Your soapbox is similar to my soapbox. So I love it. I love it. Monique, soapbox moment.
I love it. I think that's just not making it hard as a parent. I think we put so much stressors on ourselves of just trying to do everything right that just being a role model for your kid, just reading with them and just being, even when they do have that 20 minutes of reading of, you actually reading with that, you have your own book and be a role model is just my big thing of just, don't make it hard. There's so many resources out here in our community and you're probably doing so many of them already and don't even know it.
You're probably doing a lot better than you think, right? Than we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big fan of slowing down. So I think slowing down in summertime is a great opportunity to do that. But it's so great to have both of you here and to hear what you have to say, because I think our parents need it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I know we said it during the podcast, but I just love that in the Treasure Valley, we have so many different resources for our parents and families over the summertime. It's pretty cool.
It is so fun to live in a really family-focused, kid-focused community because, like you said, there are so many options available across the price spectrum, right? Like from free opportunities to really expensive camps and everything in between. It's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. So anyway, thank you for watching and being a part of our podcast today. As always, if you wouldn't mind, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Spotify, Google, Amazon. If you listen on iTunes, rate us and leave a review as well there. And you can also watch us on YouTube. Go to YouTube and subscribe to the West Ada School District podcast there if you don't mind. And we want to hear from you. We've got some great podcasts coming up, but give us some ideas. What do you want to hear about, especially as we're heading into summertime? We'd love to get an email from you at communicate@westada.org. And we've got some pretty cool stuff coming up as well.
Well, we do. And, I always say as Idahoans, we get so excited to come out of winter that it's almost like we skip over spring. And here we are talking about summer. But we have a lot of cool stuff coming up before that. We have graduations and things like that. We're going to talk about some social media and brain health with kids. So some cool guests lined up there. But, as always, we're, like Ken said, looking for ideas to keep you entertained and educated as you follow along on this West Ada podcast journey. And
yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. And so, we'll talk social media and the West Ada Ready series that we do. We do that every spring. And if you haven't seen that, again, go to the West Ada YouTube channel. There are some amazing, what we do is we basically talk to graduating seniors and find out their stories and what West Ada has done for them and what they're planning to do next. So some really cool stuff on the YouTube channel.
If you're ever feeling like you're losing hope in humanity or faith in humanity, check out our West Ada Ready, because we have some cool kids, young adults headed out into the world soon.
Some great kids. Anyway, thanks for joining us. And until next time, we'll see you soon.